Hello and welcome to another creature creation video where I will be going through my creatures and introducing them one by one. I've been thinking long and hard about which creature I should introduce next. I could go in order, in which case it would be Scotty next because he was the second creature that I ever created, or I could go with my favourite, which would be Sebastian. Obviously, he has to be my favourite. Or I could go with the Pebble Dragons and introduce Seth because I do think that he will be one of the most popular creatures. But then I was thinking, and I've decided to introduce Gwen next because Gwen is such an integral part of the forest that I think it only makes sense that her story comes next. She is the main focus for what I'm currently writing, so it makes sense that I introduce her as soon as possible because no doubt I'm going to be talking about what I'm writing, and if I just suddenly start spouting off about things that Gwen's done, you're not going to understand what I'm on about. And that way I can talk about my writing without you getting confused, and she is actually intertwined with quite a lot of other creatures, so it just makes sense that she is next on my list. This might not be how I introduce all of the characters. I might introduce some that aren't part of the story yet before I introduce other main characters. I haven't decided yet, but Gwen is a good place to start, and hopefully it will make the web of my narrative a little bit easier to understand. Also, it does help that she has one of the most complete backstories in the forest. As I was filming Bert's video, he kept changing, I kept deciding to take him in different directions, and honestly, it was really hard to film his video. So I'm hoping having established a lot of Gwen's story already will help me make this video a little bit easier. Hopefully. We'll see. Gwen was one of the later additions to the forest. She was quite far into me making the forest, and that was partly because I was avoiding drawing humanoid figures like the plague. I didn't want to practice drawing faces, and I didn't want to practice drawing hands. So I avoided them completely. But as soon as I saw the pattern in this coffee stain, I knew it was going to be a humanoid. I saw the horns and I saw the face profile, and I knew my time avoiding portraits was done and gone. So here we are. I then spent way longer than I care to admit practicing faces and how to draw them and how to get the proportions right, just for this one specific creature. And in hindsight, I am glad I did, but at the time I became quite obsessed with getting it correct. But it worked out in the end. I did get better. It's like they say, practice makes semi-decent. I even ended up sitting my fiance down and getting him to take a reference photo for me because I couldn't find any good ones online that I wanted to use, so I used him. I like to think you can still see the resemblance of him in Gwen's eyes. I think they look pretty similar. Not gonna lie. Now, I know it might sound a little bit strange that I used my fiance's face for a magical female figure within my forest, but he was the only person around at the time that I was sketching this creature, apart from me, and I didn't want to use my face. And I am terrible at drawing the male form. Like, I'm bad at drawing females. I'm awful at drawing males. I can't do it. I need more practice at it. So I knew that she was going to be female because I was already practicing something I wasn't quite comfortable with. So he just became the reference for my magical female main character. Anyway, while I was battling with the eyes and the mouth and exploiting my fiance's image as an art reference, I did have her story building in my imagination. There were a few things that jumped out to me. Gwen's story came quite easily to me. As soon as I saw the horns, I knew that she was going to be a dryad and satyr cross. I'd already established the pairing in the forest through Gwen's brother Lester, who I will introduce in another video. So it made sense. And at this point, when I was creating creatures, I was trying to think of like their connections within the forest. So she kind of sprang out of nowhere, but nearly fully formed. It was weird. She became the sibling of Lester, but she is vastly different from him. She is a humanoid with goat legs and horns, which she got from her father, the satyr. From her mother, the dryad, she got her twiggy hair and her green skin. And after a lot of indecision, I settled on calling their species the fauna. You can have a fauna capra, which is more goat-like, or a fauna humaniformis, which is more humanoid. And I'll probably do another video on that because it might be quite complex to get into here. But all you need to know is that Gwen is a fauna humaniformis. And there are some unique characteristics that Gwen has. Firstly, she has green skin and photosynthesizes a lot like a plant. She consumes water and various minerals instead of eating solid food, and she relies on the sun to create her energy for her body to function, which can become a little bit of a problem on cloudy and rainy days. She also has a pretty cool ability to tune into the natural world around her. So with dryads, there are a lot of different stories around dryads, but one of the biggest commonalities that they have is that they are tree spirits. So I decided to take a little bit of creative license when it came to the dryads. I decided that as a species, they are born away from their trees, and they, when they're young, have to go searching for their soul tree. Once they've found the tree, they can then merge with it and basically become one with the tree, one with nature, and these spirit-like forms. When they merge with the tree, they essentially bind their essence to it, and it becomes one and the same. They are the tree is them. So they reflect the stages of the tree. They're born anew in spring and then die in winter to be reborn the following spring. But enough about the dryads, this is about Gwen. While she doesn't have that ability or that connection, she has something that I arguably think is cooler. She inherited her mum's ability to move her consciousness into the natural world. That means that she can connect with the root network of the trees. And while they have a very different societal structure than the creatures do, and they have a different way of thinking, she basically sees plants and creatures as the same. They can communicate, they can pass stories back and forth, they are their own living, breathing system, and Gwen can utilize that. As I was drawing her, and this was coming to fruition, I did wonder where Gwen's place in the forest would be, and I did think that it was important for her to have a integral role, because at this point she was the only humanoid and therefore the only person with opposable thumbs. So given her kind nature and her connection to the plants, I decided that she would be perfect as a forest healer, and she would use her abilities to heal the sick and injured creatures that would have otherwise perished. It also suited her because then she could use her knowledge gained from the plants on her patients. As Gwen grew and became a fuller character, the span of her powers is something that gave me pause for thought, and it is something that I'm going to explore more in my writing. It's part of Gwen's journey that she learns more about her powers and what she can actually do for the forest, but I quickly knew that from a child Gwen would use her abilities to try and find plants that had healing properties that she could use, and I actually think that the plants would be eager for Gwen to use them and so willingly share their knowledge with her. After all, they grew with medicinal properties, so surely they would want to help the creatures. Through the years, Gwen's knowledge of the forest and the powerful tinctures that she could create from potent flower combinations gave her the reputation of being a miracle worker, and creatures came to her for her help, so she was happy in her world. There was no need for her to go anywhere else because she had everything that she needed. Unlike her brother Lester, who was a nomadic soul, Gwen was a total homebody. And while she was curious about the outside world, there was never any reason for her to get out of her comfort zone and explore, which is where her story begins. The story of the healer and the fox will follow Gwen and her companion Barkley, a wood fox, as they are forced to journey across the forest. I'm trying not to give too much away, but on their journey they will meet creatures that Gwen had previously only heard about in stories or she thought were mythical. As fleshed out as Gwen is, I can see that there is a lot of room for her to grow and develop. Even as I'm writing, she's becoming such a complex character and she's reacting in ways that I would never have suspected. I've seen writers and authors before say that their characters are acting in ways that they didn't think were possible and they're surprising them, and I've always said, what do you mean? They're your character, you're creating them. But now I understand. She is doing things that I didn't think she would do. I first envisioned her as a kind and timid character, a small healer in a corner of the forest that was scared to set foot outside her little boundary. But as I'm writing, I've actually found her to be quite sassy, very willful, and completely loyal to those who earn her trust. She's actually been held back by the responsibility that she feels towards the other creatures in the forest, which is why she hasn't explored like she has actually wanted to do. And she hasn't realized that she can desire things for herself. She is not just in the forest to heal others. And I just think that's such a great way for the character to be developing, and it's going completely against what I originally thought, and it is so much better. There is still the issue of how Gwen's abilities will develop, and that is something that I haven't really decided on yet. It's something that will continue to grow with Gwen as I'm writing. I have an idea of where it's going, but who knows, she might throw me completely off course. I have no idea. We'll see what happens. There's definitely a long road ahead for a character. Until I've finished this thing that I'm working on, this manuscript, I won't know where her character is going to end up. But there are some things that I would like to do for the manuscript that I think would help. For a start, I think that I need to create more fauna. At the minute, she's the only fauna humaniformis, and I think that needs to change for her to develop further. At the moment, I'm feeling a lack of, how to put it, species continuity. I've created a lot of creatures, but not a lot of creatures of the same species, and I think that needs to be rectified. The fauna are a great place to start with this. I can think of so many different ways a satyr and a dryad pairing would end, and I'm getting really excited thinking about that development. I'm very excited to draw more of their species, so that will be coming. While Gwen and Lester were originally supposed to be the only fauna in the forest, I don't think that that's a very realistic expectation anymore. As the narrative grows, so do the complexities of relationships and characters that I want to explore. So I think adding more fauna to the mix will really help, as well as adding other species and other creatures for the side characters to interact with, I think will really help flesh out the story that I'm writing. I'm just craving a little bit more of a cohesive society, which it kind of goes against what I was originally intending, but I'm excited to see how it works. And if it doesn't work, then I can just put it aside for a different day or a different world. Maybe I'll create more than one world, but I can put it aside and let it sit for a while, and I can come back to the original plan, which is to have a whimsical world. One thing that I would like you to take away from this video is that all of my characters are still very much in development. There's a lot of room for them to grow, and Gwen is definitely a deeper character than I ever thought that she would be. But I am so glad that I took the plunge when I was staring at that coffee stain and actually faced my fear of the human form, because I think I've grown as an artist, and it's from Gwen that I've started writing and creating an actual written world. Before then, I didn't see much tying the creatures together. She was the catalyst for the narrative. So obviously you haven't seen the last of her. She is very much intertwined with everything that I am doing. And I think I will be doing more of a draw with me video with the fauna and creating more of the characters for that species. So she will be coming up then, obviously, because she is that species. Her and Lester will both be in that video, and I will probably introduce Lester next because I realise I've mentioned him a lot in this video. So if you would like to see either of those videos, make sure that you hit the like and subscribe button so that you get the notifications when they drop. So I will see you in the next video.